Yes, so today is our Mission Partner Sunday. So, what is a mission partner, you may ask? So this is the term that we've started using here to describe organizations that we are kind of in an ongoing relationship working with, and in most cases are financially supporting regularly. So we, as a church, we've committed to giving away 10% of our budget, which we see as something to give beyond ourselves. And that looks like lots of different things, but ultimately it's about kind of encouraging God's kingdom to come in Manchester and beyond. And so we do lots of one-off giving, but we also do lots of regular giving, and we're very intentional with what that looks like and the people that we partner with. And so actually we thought it'd be really important and really fun that we all know about that, and not just that, oh great, church gives, cool, but that it's significant, A, that we do it, but B, where we do it, and because that's really intentional. And so we're taking the opportunity this morning to share about that, and we're going to hear in particular from representatives of three of the organisations that we support regularly. And what's really fun is those three people are all part of our church family, which is really exciting. So that's not our exclusive criteria for who we support, but that is also, we want to recognise that part of what we do as a church is what we do as a church, and that doesn't just look like kind of church activities, but that sometimes that's our jobs or the things that we're passionate about. And so it's really fun to be able to celebrate that this morning. And so just so you know, I don't know if we've got a list of the people we do support regularly. Damon, you want to flash that up? So today we're going to hear from Barnabas City Wall and Boaz. I'll get those up, guys, up in just a second. I know I keep teasing it, but we also support regularly Anchor Education. Margaret Stockwell, you guys will know her. She does a lot of amazing work throughout Africa. And then Fusion are a student mission organisation that we've been supporting for many years. And you may or may not have heard of the message, but they're doing some great work in Manchester, and it's amazing to be able to partner with those guys. But just wanted to share one scripture first before we kind of dive in. And that is, it's from 2 Corinthians 5, which I'll read in a second. Mission is one of those Christian words that you sort of can't disagree with. It's like one of those things that everyone universally thinks this is a good thing. But it's also a word that people use to mean lots of different things in lots of different contexts. It could be about, your personal mission in terms of your like personal evangelism. It might be you might think about mission and think of like overseas travel or supporting projects abroad. It might be more to do with social action and those kind of things. And basically it's all of those things. It's everything and so much more. And I think fundamentally it is like God has a mission, which we hear about in the Lord's Prayer. It's thy will be done, thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. That is God's mission. And so often we think about mission as almost like a compartment of what we as a church and we as individuals should do. It's like part of the menu. We need to have a bit of a mission on there. Like, actually, we're church, and so we need to have a mission. But actually, God has a mission, which is his kingdom will come. And for that mission, he has a church. So God's mission has a church. It's not that God's church has a mission, it's God's mission has a church. And so that's exciting that we get to explore that in loads of different ways. And I think one of the passages that I find so helpful in this is 2 Corinthians 5. Let's just read this quickly. From now on then, we do not know anyone from a worldly perspective. Even if we've known Christ from a worldly perspective, yet we no longer know him in this way. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he's a new creation. The old has passed away, and see, the new has come. Everything is from God, who has reconciled us to himself through Christ and has given us the ministry of reconciliation. That is, Christ in God was reconciling the world to himself, not counting their trespasses against them, and he has committed the message of reconciliation to us. Therefore, we are ambassadors for Christ, since God is making his appeal through us. We plead on Christ's behalf, be reconciled to God. He made the one who did not know sin to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. So there's a call on every single one of our lives to be a representative for God, to be those people that are looking at the world and pleading, come back to God, looking at the world and not seeing it through the world's eyes, not treating people as the world would treat them, but actually seeing them as God sees them, which are beloved, unique, wonderfully created people that he wants to be with. And actually, every single one of us, whether it is an activity we're doing as a church, whether it is in ministry we're doing outside, whether it is in how we live our day-to-day lives, actually we're called to bring God's kingdom and to be representatives of God's kingdom. So my hope this morning is that as we hear from the guys, we'll be excited about the impact that their organizations are having. We'll be stirred to pray for them, that actually they will continue to see God's kingdom come through the work that they're doing. But actually we would be inspired. Perhaps personally, there might be more that we want to join in with what these guys are talking about. You know, we don't just want to be like, oh, great, church gives you money, cool. Like, actually, there may be specific projects that we feel stirred to get involved in. Or equally, actually, there might be stuff on your heart that like, oh, this is where I want to see God's kingdom come. This is where it doesn't look like heaven right now. And I want all of us to leave this morning inspired by the fact that we're ambassadors, that God chooses to use us in his glory and his wisdom. He chooses to partner with us to say, come back to God, let's be his ambassadors. So that's what we're hoping for this morning. But that's enough for me. So why don't we welcome Emily and Katie and Neil. Let's give them a massive cheer. Good morning, guys. Morning. You're all making noise. Yeah, excellent. Great. Well, we'll just dive straight in. So why don't we just go quickly through and just say who you are and who you're representing this morning.
Am I starting? So I'm Neil, you may know that. And I'm representing Barnabas this morning. I am a partnership manager at Barnabas, so I get the privilege of working there all week. And Barnabas is a Christian homeless charity based in city centre Manchester. We've been going for just over 30 years, supporting people out of homelessness. The ultimate aim is to support people out of homelessness for good, to help people get into a home to call their own. So that's us.
Good morning, I'm Katie. I work for the Boaz Trust, so I'm head of support there, and we are a also faith-based organisation providing accommodation and support to refugees and people seeking asylum in Greater Manchester, and also alongside the practical element have a kind of advocacy arm, so using what we learn to try and change systems that cause destitution locally and nationally.
Hello, I'm Emily. I work for City Wall. We support young people and families from some of the most vulnerable and disadvantaged communities in Salford and across Greater Manchester. It's personalised, often one-to-one support to help people overcome the barriers they face. And I should say that there's a healthy cohort of past and present Vinelifers who work at City Wall. So one of the directors is Rachel Lacey. Emma Hodges leads all of our work with school age young people. And Ruth Hill is one of our one-to-one caseworkers. Anna Churn goes into schools and does early intervention mental health support. We also have some projects that are working with young people in very precarious transitional points in their lives. So young people who are in custody or coming out of custody or victims of criminal or sexual exploitation. And we also do wider family support to support the families around the young people as the context in which they can thrive.
Amazing. That's incredible. And so we had a chat a few days ago, didn't we? We were just kind of thinking about this morning, and one of the sort of where we started the conversation was, could you each tell us something about what it is about for you in terms of following Jesus that that kind of inspires you in your work?
I'm going first, because you just looked at me. Gosh, there's so much about our work that I would say when people ask me why I do what I do, I often sort of a bit of a trite answer, but I feel it sums it up, is being the hands and feet of Jesus to the people who are the most vulnerable or on the most fringes of our society. Those who are rough sleeping in Manchester City Centre, get abused, get spat at and violence committed against them by members of the general public, let alone people who are also in that situation. So I often think about that and think, well, where would Jesus be in Manchester City Centre? And he'd probably be hanging out with them. So we get to do that on a daily basis, and I get to do that. And I think sometimes we can be overwhelmed, can't we? The problem of homelessness alone is overwhelming. We haven't got enough houses. Well, we have got enough houses. It's a justice issue. We haven't got houses that are available for the people we're working with. We haven't got infrastructure that helps with mental health and drug addiction, etc. That's just homelessness housing. I'll turn to Katie and Emily and the problems they're facing, and then you look at your news feed. You're overwhelmed. Yeah, anybody feel overwhelmed? Just take 10 seconds on your news feed, and sometimes that can paralyze us. But I feel like if we take one step, we're being the hands and feet of Jesus. And I'm always reminded of Matthew 25, the sheep and the goats, that story where Jesus is saying, if you did it for the least of these, you did it for me. And often when I'm in our centre and the people who walk in, bedraggled, under the influence of something, mental health all over the place, and I think, how are we going to help you? And the team do a brilliant job doing that. But I often have a sense of Jesus in that moment. It's hard to put into words, but in their hopelessness and their pain, I can see that Jesus is there because they've come to our centre, and we haven't got all the answers. We have to work with other people. In fact, we often work with Katie. Sometimes I'm on the same meetings as Katie. It's great, but we can do what we can. And I think that's the thing that really inspires me, is to do what we can. Love the person in front of you. Love the person who Jesus puts in your path. And it might not be homelessness, it might be something else today that inspires you. But in our world and in my world, that's what inspires me, to be the hands and feet of Jesus to those who are the most broken.
Amazing.
I mean, I could just say same, but that's not move us along quickly. Yeah, I think working for an organisation called Boaz, I think that's a good place to start. So for people who know the book of Ruth, and seeing Ruth and Naomi in a foreign land, open to, at risk of abuse and exploitation and just fear, and finding hospitality, protection, generosity, possibly not the marriage bit. That's, not necessarily suggesting that for everyone. And I think there is so much in the Bible that shows us how we should respond in a world where people are on the move. I'm not going to quote this is my paraphrasing, but do not mistreat or oppress a foreigner. The foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers. And in Matthew, Jesus saying, I was a stranger and you invited me in, offering food, clothing, helping when sick. And I just think it's so clear that we are instructed to welcome the stranger and offer hospitality to people, on top of everything Neil said. And I think for me as well, recognizing how we are salt and light in these situations. And, sometimes I think I can tick that off. I get paid to do it. Great, I've done that. But actually, it's a real encouragement and a challenge when I look at those previous verses, and that we're called to do that all the time. Wherever we are, we can be salt and light. And, when we're not paid to be doing it, how do we love our neighbour? How do we offer welcome, kindness, hospitality to those we interact with in our places of study, work, worship, but also the postman, our neighbours, our physical neighbours, as well as those within our communities. So I think that's me.
Great.
I think the thing that really stands out for me, and maybe sometimes feels like it sets us apart in the sector that we're working in, is that we actually expect to see breakthrough, and we expect to see transformation, and we come into a situation with a living and active hope that actually this can be healed and this could be different. The future doesn't have to look how it looks right now. And I think it is really easy and understandable to become a little bit jaded and exhausted in this sector. And I think one of the things that feels different when we're coming at it from a perspective of faith, is we come in with that hope that actually anything can be healed, anything can be redeemed. You're not stuck. And I think for a lot of people that we work with, they've been struggling for a long time, stuck in a situation for a long time, often feel like they're not being listened to, or don't know where to access the support they need, or they're constantly fighting against systems that maybe they don't understand, or just feel like they haven't got someone on their side. And so then it's very easy to just feel like, well, we're stuck. And I think we talk a lot about having eyes on people who are at risk of becoming invisible or falling through the cracks. And an example of that is a lot of the young people that we work with in the kind of school age bracket are young people who should be getting their education, but for multiple different reasons, they are not able to get their education in a mainstream setting. They are then not accessing school, and their parents are struggling with being told they need to get their child into school, but seeing that that's negatively impacting their child's mental health. Their child isn't learning in school. Their child can't be settled and comfortable in school. Many different complex reasons, but those young people are at risk of just being this invisible population, this invisible community who aren't getting the education that they are entitled to, that they deserve, and therefore don't have the options open to them in the future that they should have. And yeah, the other thing to say is the way that we work, I feel, is we it's modelled on the example of Jesus and the fact that he interrupted his day to stop for the person in front of him, that he wasn't judgmental, and also that the name City Wall comes from Nehemiah Wall, and it's that idea that we are working shoulder to shoulder with many other organisations and partners to do this work, to build a wall that reinforces the city, that protects the most vulnerable people. And it's not about us getting glory and prestige and credit for it. As long as the wall gets built, we don't mind who gets the credit.
Great. Thanks. Very cool. So it'd be great to hear a little bit. So obviously it is a pleasure as a church to be able to support you guys financially. Just to hear a bit about some more of the impact your organisations are making. So let's not go to Neil first this time. I don't know if anyone wants to go first. Katie? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I'm not going to bore, I know some people love stats, but I'm not going to bore everyone with the stats. We've all bought kind of, not merch, what's the right word, leaflets and stuff in our organisation, information, thanks everybody. And so our supporter reviews out there with all the stats and stories from last year. But yeah, headline of, for last year we worked with over 620 people across Greater Manchester. So that's either people in our accommodation or that we provided support through our outreach support projects. So those are all people with mostly newly granted refugee status, people who are homeless in the asylum process, people who've been refused asylum, or other people with uncertain, insecure, unknown, changing immigration status, all within Greater Manchester. Supported people from over 50 countries, which is amazing and always a joy to meet people from such diverse backgrounds. And yeah, like I said, more stuff's out there. I thought it would be rather than me talking, I'm going to share something from somebody that we've worked with. It is on I've not got it, don't worry. It's on a video on our website, and which is much better because it's in his own words, this man called Noah, but it was too long for this morning. So I've chopped some of it. So apologies, it's coming from me. But it was a story about a guy called Noah who we worked with, and he is somebody who had to leave his country because of persecution by the government there, as well as within his society, by local community members. And once he'd been in the UK, he was refused asylum and became homeless. And people who are seeking asylum or who've been refused can't work, can't access benefits. And he was at risk of removal to his country that he was still at risk in. And I think he was referred by his church actually, and he was in our accommodation. We provided support and access to an immigration solicitor, and he was able to make further submissions to the Home Office and a fresh asylum claim, which was successful. Sorry, no, that's legal jargon, but it means he's now got refugee status, so he's got 5 years leave to remain. He can live here, work here, and that's great. So talking about his experience of Boaz, Noah said, "When I was refused, the life for me was hell. You feel like a prisoner in a big prison. You can't travel, you don't have the rights to work, to get benefits, and no rights to accommodation. I was stressed, depressed, and I lost trust in people. I lost trust in God. But now everything has changed. Yes, my life now has changed completely. My life now is beautiful. I am settled, I got a job, and everything now is going in the right direction, and I'm very optimistic about the future of myself and my family also. When I compare my life in the past with my life now, it's unbelievable. I can't believe this big shift and this big change in my life. I'm happy, optimistic, I have a job, and now my life is going in the right direction. Boaz is more than accommodation or food. Boaz is a paradise for people like me and other people who are homeless and destitute. It's about giving people hope. So for me, it's a real privilege to hear that when I've been working with somebody, but also just to say it's only made possible by people who support us either financially, prayerfully. And so that's just also my thanks to Vinelife, whether you knew it or not. Thanks for giving us money. Because it's only through that support that we're able to keep our accommodation running and ensuring that we can provide safety for people here in the UK.
Thanks, Katie. Do you want to go next?
So to give you an idea of numbers, last year we supported around 150 young people and families. This year I think it was more, but I haven't run the numbers yet. One of the big celebrations from last year was that in our post-16 cohort of young people, between them they achieved 18 accredited English or maths qualifications, which means suddenly they have these doors opened up to them that they didn't have before, whether it's further education, training, employment. That's a huge celebration for them, that they're going out into the world with some functional English and maths skills qualifications. But I did just want to tell you one particular story about a young person that we're currently supporting who has lived all her life in Bolton. She had a very complicated childhood and wasn't able to stay with her parents beyond the age of 6 because of drug and alcohol use. She went to live with her grandparents, but at the age of 16 chose to leave there without anywhere fixed to go. We started working with her just before her 18th birthday, at which point she didn't have a stable place to live. She was either moving between friends or finding open apartment buildings where she could sleep in the hallways, which obviously left her extremely vulnerable to exploitation. Over a period of 12 months, she was exploited by a group of older men, often having to travel around the country to meet these grown men who were trading this girl as a commodity. And at 18, social care have to close their support because they just don't have the resources to continue beyond 18. But because we'd started working with her before she turned 18 and we're not a statutory service, so we could continue supporting her. Over about 18 months, we've helped her to access the right benefits and health services that she can access, that she's entitled to. And we're offering her ongoing support around accommodation to find somewhere safe and stable for her to live. Her life is much more stable now, which crucially means she can think about the future, think about what her actual aspirations are for her life. And I think one of the best things that City Wall has done for her is show her you're a person with value. You're not a commodity for other people to use. You're a person with value and dreams and hopes and aspirations and stuff to offer the world. And the world needs that from you. And it's shown her how she can take ownership of her life and start thinking, what do I want my life to look like? And actually, it doesn't have to be all this stuff that's gone before. I think I wanted to share that example because it's a really good example of what I'm talking about in terms of meeting young people at a very precarious point where their future could go off in quite different directions, and giving them hope that the future could look different and helping them to take some of the first steps to get towards that better future.
That's great. So Barnabas, again, we've all got statistics, haven't we? But I suppose all of our statistics highlights the issues that are going on in society right now. But so for us, we served 971 people last year. That's just Manchester, so just the borough of Manchester, so not Greater Manchester, who the majority of those would have been rough sleeping or in temporary accommodation and aged over 26 as well. So we don't see everybody who's in that rough sleeping and homeless situation. But I suppose, again, numbers tell one story, but people tell another story, don't they? And so one of the things that we are really passionate about at Barnabas is not just meeting people in crisis and giving them something. We want to lift people out of the crisis and the poverty and the hopelessness they find themselves in, and give them a different way forward, give them hope, give them transformation, give the possibility of change, like we've all just expressed. So we can now do that in a physical sense. So we have our support centre, which is on Bloom Street, which meets people where they're at, rough sleeping, majority of them. That's the crisis moment when people do arrive with a sleeping bag often or nothing at all, and come into our centre. We then have caseworkers who will work with people who get temporarily accommodated. And just to say, you're still homeless when you're temporarily accommodated. That is still homelessness. Rough sleeping is just the visible end of homelessness. If you're in accommodation, but it's not your permanent place to call home, you're still homeless. And although we don't see families, there are thousands of families right now in England who are homeless, but you won't see them on the streets, thank the Lord. But that's still a statistic that's true. So we work with people in that temporary middle piece. And now we have houses. So we now have a place where people can call home, a temporary home, not the long-term home, but a place where people can find stability, find a place to deal with their past issues, their trauma, their reasons why they're in addiction, whatever it is that they need to deal with, so they can then build some stability and then hopefully move into their own place, have their own tenancy, have a home to call their own, and live life normally, if whatever normal life looks like for people. But that does look like people reconnecting with family. That does look like people reconnecting with their children. That does look like people going back to work. And we have one gentleman, because that is new, by the way. The houses are new. We've got 3 supported houses, and that is new over the last 18 months. We've got one gentleman who's done that whole journey, and we've just employed him as a caseworker, which we're really excited about. And he is part of the team, and we met him just less than 2 years ago on the streets, deep in his drug addiction and really struggling. And he came to our centre, and he'd tried lots of different places, hadn't worked for him. He was at the end of his tether, if you like. And one of the team just took him under his wing and said, "Come with me." And one of our teams had a very similar story, and was there to share his story. And he listened. And I think for the first time, the penny dropped that he could change, that he didn't have to live like this for the rest of his life. And from that moment on, he engaged with everything we offered him. He was one of the first people to go into our supported housing. He's sort of sustained that. He did everything we asked him to do, detoxes, volunteering. He was part of the volunteer team. And he's been journeying with us over the last 12 months plus as part of the volunteer team, to the point where we almost treated him like a staff member before he was a staff member. He was so reliable. He was doing a great job. The guys were really engaged with him and came through the door. And he'd been doing other volunteering in other organisations. He'd worked with Shelter. He actually went for a job with Shelter. That didn't work out. We were gutted, really gutted about it. And actually, the opportunity came up for us to employ him. So we were able to employ him. He has his own flat now through our resettlement programme. It's actually one of the additional facts, a flat that came to us through somebody I met at a Jesus Culture conference 8 years ago, who put us in touch with a Hong Kong landlord who had flats that we were able to take on for Barnabas. How crazy is that? I just love the way God works. But anyway, he's in one of those flats. He's now an employee. He's part of our staff team. He sits around in our staff meetings in the morning now, and he gives us his opinion on how we can help people move forward. It's a brilliant story. And one day I'm hoping he will be sat here telling you about that and not me. And he'd be doing a lot of the work I do in terms of going around to churches and different places to talk about Barnabas, because that's transformation, isn't it? And that's what we're all about.
Amazing. And I'm sure these guys have got tons more stories as well. And if you wanted to chat more with them at the end, they'll be able to tell you loads for sure. And I think just really struck by how, like, the word partner, that's not just a sort of throwaway thing. Like, actually, like, God is relational. He is relationship in and of himself. And actually, I think, especially when it comes to amazing work that you guys are doing and other things people are doing as well, like, it's easy to, I think, particularly feel quite transactional. Like, oh, I just need to make sure, like, I've given some money, or great, church supports them, cool. That almost like tick it off, conscience clear, move on sort of thing. So I guess I would love just to know, like, if there is anything particular, I guess, that would really encourage you guys as individuals, but probably more than that, actually, if there's stuff going on in your organizations that we as church could support or be specifically praying for. But particularly, I don't know if there's ways that individuals could get involved with stuff that you're doing, right, super practically. If there's any of that sort of stuff, then we'd love to know about it. Go for him.
Yes. So one of the things is obviously financial giving is one way to give, but also skills, people with skills in different areas, giving your time and your skills is also a really valuable way to donate and give and support what we're doing. And one of the things that I'm quite often trying to do is get things designed for us, get some of our, which doesn't sound like it's an important part of the work necessarily, but it's, getting the website designed and getting a prospectus designed for the post 16 and all of that. And I'm not a designer, so sometimes I'm looking for things like that where it would be amazing if someone had skills that they could and time that they could just give a bit of that to City Wall, so that we can get some, so things look more professional, or that kind of thing. Also, we are trying to make the garden area at one of our centres a really welcoming, well-being space, and it was previously not that, quite overgrown, and we weren't sort of maintaining it. We didn't have the capacity to maintain it, and so genuinely things like grass seed and bulbs and flowers that we can plant there, because all of that costs money, and we genuinely don't have money that we can just set aside for going to B&Q to get the nice stuff for the garden. But also, as I said, we benefit so much from Vinelife beyond the financial giving, because people have come to work for City Wall and add so much value. So if you are looking for work in this kind of area, come and chat to me, particularly if you have teaching experience. There may be opportunities there, and that always adds value to the team and to what we can do. And also, if you work for a Manchester-based company, big organisations often have a charity partner or a social value partner, and often they're nominated by people who work there. And that would be amazing for any organisation like ours.
That, don't we?
If you have a
Choose your favourite.
partner, whoever you like. But it really helps if people are like, oh, I've got a good organisation we could support, and then to have the support of a big corporate that's trying to kind of demonstrate its social value and give some of its money to good causes, that really helps as well. Did you want us to say about things that we want prayer for? Or should we
Well, hang on to that. Yeah, sorry.
Well, yeah, spoiler, I was going to say pray, but we'll come on to that later. Definitely pray. And yeah, as Em said, there's definitely things that cover all three. I know Ralph said it feels like a tick box, but yeah, giving financially, we're all charities working in a really tricky funding and economic climate, as we all know. So yeah, please do give if you want to. From ours as well, linked into our advocacy work, writing to MPs, there's some really hostile and horrible legislation going through Parliament at the moment around immigration. And yes, so kind of getting informed about that and the impact it has on your loved ones and your communities across Greater Manchester. And that's on our website if helpful. We don't have loads of volunteer roles at the moment, but again, if you've got specific skills that you'd like to contribute, have a chat with me afterwards. And the final one, probably shared with Neil as well. And you never know unless you ask, if you've got a spare house, spare accommodation. We've done talks like this before, and people in church, that's how we got our first house over 20 years ago. Our founder did a talk at a church, and a student landlord decided, actually, he was going to let us use his house instead of students. So if you don't ask, you don't get. If you've got a spare house, let us know.
Yeah, and we work together on that, don't we, sometimes? So you can get loads of ways to get involved at Barnabas. What I described earlier, I need over 50 volunteers a week. So if you would like to volunteer, I would love that. Again, come and say hi to us on the desk out there. Myself and Alex White works for Barnabas. I didn't mention that earlier, so he will be out there with me to talk about Barnabas. And many of you in the room have volunteered in the past or do volunteer now. My secret weapon was Anne Stewart, but she's not here this morning. I asked her to come and be here. She wouldn't do this, but I'm sure she'd chat to you about it other weeks. And Helen is over there as well. Helen doesn't volunteer for Barnabas, but part of the services that we provide is NHS access to everybody, and Helen is on site with us every week, being our nurse. So you can say hi to Helen. I'm sure she'd appreciate that. You can volunteer in our breakfast project. That's Monday through Thursday. You can do that before you go to work, 7 till 8:30, just serving breakfast, bacon sandwiches and cheese toasties and a cup of tea or coffee. You can be involved in our morning support sessions. That's between 9 and 12:30. Again, simple food from the kitchen or running our showers and clothing. And then we have other sort of outreachy type opportunities, things like a Bible study, a Christian recovery group, and our light session, which is on a Thursday, which looks a bit like a small group. You can be involved in any of those. I would particularly love people to be involved in those three, because you guys, most of you anyway, as far as I know Jesus. And that'll be really helpful to have more Christians on our team. We don't have, not everybody that works for Barnabas is a Christian, not everybody who volunteers at Barnabas is a Christian, but I know the difference it makes when we have more Christians in the team, because you don't just get to witness to the people in front of you, you get to witness to the people alongside you, which is equally powerful. So there's loads of ways to get involved. Come and say hi. If you have got a spare house, yeah, that'd be wonderful. And if you want to give financially as well, you can do that. Come and chat to us after.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think it just encourages us all as well to be just be creative in thinking about what it could look like. There's probably little things that you're already doing that just a slight little trick. Sorry to embarrass my wife, but one of the things she started doing was prints that she sells on her website. 10% of them go to Boaz. I don't know if you're still doing that, but you have done. Yeah, sorry. But it's just like, that's a really simple way of something she's doing already, but actually it supports a charity that she thinks is really important, but also creates awareness, and so there's probably loads of little things like that that you've got going on that could actually just add weight. And I think that's the real heart of this morning, is how do we as a group of people add weight to what God is doing beyond us, and that's going to look like loads of different things, but particularly where we've got like actual people doing stuff. And so there'll be more of that in this room as well. So I just encourage you guys to think okay, this isn't just what Emily's doing, what Katie's doing, what Neil's doing. This is what we are doing. And what have I got? And it might just be the widow's offering, but actually if it's offered with faithfulness, like God can do amazing things with that. So hopefully this is just like a little bit of inspiration, but there may be more stuff that you want to dig into with these guys that they can help with you. And likewise, there'll be other things across the room. And don't be shy about, hey, I'm doing this thing, and you're in my church, so you're doing this thing as well, because we're connected, we're part of one body. So how can we support each other? How can we love one another in that? Awesome. We've not got loads of time left, so how can we pray for you? Maybe specifically if there's anything individually, but I guess also like what one thing do you really need to see breakthrough in the mission field that you're in?
I can go first.
Great.
Yeah, I think all of us will say pray internally, people we work with, the teams, blah, blah, blah. I think when Ralph said about, what can we, not blah, 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 sorry. That's important. I think what really struck me is that we're all operating in really challenging environments and systems, and there's so many historic and systemic patterns of injustice. And I think at Boaz we see that within systems of racism and the evils of racism that still are so prevalent within our country, our legislation, our systems. And recognise I'm a white woman saying this, and I know it goes much deeper than refugees and people seeking asylum, but for me, like the hostility, and we saw it last year with the race riots, and so kind of justice in those systems where people continually oppressed and damaging systems.
Good, thanks, Keith.
I'm just thinking about specific things. Obviously, prayer for the young people and families that we support. There are wide and complex issues, but there's there's been a lot of conversation in the news recently about the kind of attendance crisis and how stretched schools are, and there's just a lot of pressure on all parties to have young people in education, and we're really passionate about them being in education that works for them, in an educational setting that works for them, and them not being labelled as the problem because they're being pushed into a setting that just doesn't work for them. So that's one of the things. There are many things. I also really wanted to ask for prayer for our team, for lots of reasons, but we do have quite a few people on our team who have chronic health conditions and come into work and try to keep doing this really, really valuable, really important work, and are dealing with quite debilitating chronic health conditions. And there's just a surprising number of people struggling with that in our team, and I'd love prayer for our team for that. And financial provision. We've always been really blessed when we've needed something, it's come along, but we're always praying for financial provision at the right times for the right things, wisdom and guidance in strategic decision making, and relationships and partnerships in the city, like we've been talking about.
Yes, a lot of similar prayer points for us. I suppose our staff team equally have a lot of health issues, so appreciate prayer for that. I think the people we're working with, there's always a level of mental ill health and addiction, but what we're seeing at the moment is people it's really, really bad, really serious, really multiple complex needs presenting, and there are people that we're trying to work with at all the other services in Manchester refuse to work with. Some of whom are violent in other places, some of whom are really, just really poorly. So pray for us as we do that. We need wisdom, we need understanding, we need the grace of God to help these people safely. Appreciate prayer for that. Injustice in the housing system, very grateful for the progress that's been made. And I've got to say that this government has made some good pledges and put some money where it should be, but we're not there yet. We're quite a way away from where we need to be. So the injustice continues in housing, so we could pray about that. That'd be great.
Amazing. We were going to gather around and pray, but I feel we'll be interrupted by a loud noise, so we won't do that. But two things. One, just even if there's just a couple of things that have stuck out to you, just put a little note in your phone, or maybe set a timer for tomorrow or something. Just it doesn't have to be everything, but even if there's just one thing that actually, like, you know what, I feel a bit of a stirring in my spirit that that's not okay, or that I want to see that happen. And could you commit to praying that even every day this week? Could you commit to praying for that? Or similarly, like, actually go and find these guys afterwards, and if you want to, I'm sure they'll be well up for it. If you want to stand and lay hands on them and pray with them, they would love that, I'm sure.
Yes.
But let me just pray, and then we'll see what happens next. Father God, thank you so much for these guys and all the work that they're doing. God, we're excited about your kingdom coming. Father, we know that just there's a lot of places where earth doesn't look like heaven yet. But God, I thank you for the hope that is in these guys' hearts, the faith that they have in you. God, their desire to trust you and to work with you. And Father, I just pray a real blessing on Barnabas and Boaz and City Wall in particular. God, would you bless them? Father, would they have abundant resource to do everything that is in their heart? God, would they see breakthrough where they feel stuck, Lord, and would they just get to celebrate, Lord, in your name being glorified in this city because of the work they do. So bless them, encourage them, inspire them, and help us as a church family to pour our weight behind them in Jesus' name. Amen.